Go to the next one.
So is there, is it family up there? Is that what you guys
Oh, yeah,
do?
we're both here. So, but, so the weekend of the 24th is.
I'll go through that from the beginning again. I remember I paused here. So this software does not require any kind of fancy sewing machine. I mean, literally, if all you owned was a featherweight, you could create quilts in this software, cut them manually without a scan and cut, and sew them together on your featherweight machine. It's not that kind of software at all. It doesn't export any type of embroidery file, so it's not something you're going to sew in your hoop on your embroidery machine. And it does not export any type of long arm quilting file. So you're not going to put it on a long arm quilting machine either. In its elementary form, it allows you to create and visualize what quilts would look like. There's over 300 blocks built in. All of those blocks are editable. So you can edit them to be whatever you want them to be. You can save the blocks. You can save the blocks. They'll save into your block library within the program. You can export when you've designed a little quilt, which is what I'll do. I'm going to do the little one that I did for the quilt show. When you get done, you can export it. You can export it out as a cut file for your scan and cut. That's where a scan and cut comes in. If you don't have a scan and cut, still don't need a scan and cut, because as it exports, it also exports pattern pieces that you can use for templates if you want to cut them that way. It also exports a general fabric requirement chart based on the colors that you picked for the quilt that you designed. So if you designed, 10 or 15 blocks and you want a king size quilt, it's going to tell you how much of each color you need to purchase. So that's kind of a nice, oops, did I lost you guys? There we go. If you design a larger style quilt, it's going to tell you how much fabric you need. It's going to tell you how much of each color that you need. When you also, part of exporting it is what I call the rough diagram that shows you how to put the pieces together and how many blocks and how the blocks are assembled. You can add sashing, you can add borders. You can make irregular shapes. You don't have to add a border. You can add a border on the top and not add a border on the bottom. So essentially the creativity in that case is really yours. So this morning I was playing with, okay, I had done a little sample, and literally this little sample that I did for the quilt show, I did from start to finish in 2 days, including quilting it on my embroidery machine. But what I did is I did a couple of on point blocks, because for me, someone that doesn't quilt a lot, matching all of those points is really a challenge. So what I did with mine is, once the program got done outputting the cut data for my scan and cut, I took that into scan and cut canvas and I put lines in for my scan and cut to draw my stitching lines. So literally it cut it. If I want to leave the point on my triangle, that's fine. If I want it to dog ear it, it'll dog ear it. And then it drew my stitching line. So when I got done, every single point was perfect because it took out a lot of the margin for error. So then I thought, well, how can I, I did it free motion. I don't have that juju in me. So if you have it, I admire it, and it's never going to happen at my house because I just don't have the skill to do that. I did do everything on my digitally. So now what I did is I on my blocks themselves, I scanned the block into my design center on my machine, and I used the built-in fill stitches in my design center. And then for the outer border, I just used the auto split quilt sashing on the machine. I could have done anything. I could have used an edge-to-edge quilting design. I could have done anything. So basically, if you have nothing else, you can do just software and a basic Singer sewing machine, a featherweight, whatever. If you have technology, you can take these cut files to any model of scan and cut. It does not need to be the newest model, because it doesn't have to be a wireless transfer. So the cut files are exported out of the program as part of the export. If you don't want to cut it on a scan and cut, no worries. It's gonna, when you get the, you can print out, it prints out like a PDF if you want it to, or you can just save it. Then it gives you the pieces that you can use as templates if you just want to use a rotary cutter and a ruler. So it's all, it can be nothing to everything in your sewing room. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now, and I have the software open. So again, I'm going to ask you, I will stay late. I will stay longer if there are questions to answer, but I'm going to ask you to hold your questions to the end. Or, you know, even if you put them in the chat box, what I'm trying to do is get through the entire presentation that I had planned for you today so that I can possibly answer those questions along the way. And then we can revisit them if need be. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Any questions so far, I guess, before I get started? That would be a good one. Okay, this software does not take up a lot of space on your hard drive. It does, however, require either a PC or what the newer Macs come loaded with Boot Camp already on them. So you would load it on the Boot Camp side of your Mac. All right, so are you all seeing my screen here? Perfect. Okay, why will it not let me make it smaller? All right, I'm gonna stop share for a minute because I'm losing, I can't minimize that screen, so I'll be right back. I need to minimize so I can see you and the screen. It's important. All right, this should work. All right, normally when you open, it was the opening splash screen that was causing a problem. So normally when you open the program, you get a little splash screen here that has the name of the program, and it says, do you want to go to the blog? Do you want to go to support? Do you want to go to the social, Stitching Social? It also has the same icons that are across the top here. Do you want to start a new quilt? Do you want to design a new block? Do you want to open something that you previously worked on? So in like all of the other programs that are created by Pulse, it saves a format that's recognized by the software. So if you have like regular embroidery software, you can reopen your embroidery design and re-edit it. When it comes to software like this, it has to have its own native file, and that's called a BRF, which is a working file. So if you just click save, it's going to save as a BRF, which is good because if you want to open it up again, then you can. If you only save it or export it without saving the BRF, you cannot bring that same quilt back in and edit it again. So I'm just going to pretend that I want to start a new quilt. So I'm going to click on my application button and I'm going to say new quilt. It automatically opens up with a 4x4 with sashing around it. So if I look at my first row, my first choice is how many blocks across and how many blocks down. So this is set for 4 across, 4 down. If I want 20 and 20, that's fine. If I want 1 and 4, that's fine. Any combination in here is fine. The next thing is it's going to say is how big do you want your blocks? The default is 8 inches. We're going to go with that for today, but I could make it however big I wanted to. And then it's like, what size line do I want for my sashing? So this is the next one here. This is my sashing. Do I want a solid line? If you see an arrow down, click on it, or do I want a dashed line? So if I wanted to add 1 inch sashing to this, I would just click in until I had 1 inch there. And 1 inch here. See, I don't even have to put them on going both ways. All right, so now I have sashing in there. It looks like it doesn't have a line there to cut the sashing pieces, but it does. Now I can have a border. So I'm going to say, yeah, I want a 2-inch border, but maybe I want two 2-inch borders. So let's do 2 inches there. I have a mouse. Why am I not using my mouse? Good question. And let's say that I want to add another border. So I'm going to click the plus and say I want that one to be 3 inches. All right. So with my border, I also have a drop-down menu. So I can have mitered borders, or I can, let me select this outer border and say, you know, with this, I don't want it. I want to stripe it horizontal. And so it stripes that horizontal. So maybe I don't want miters up here either. So maybe I'll select that one and say, I want corner blocks there. And I can put in corner blocks. So literally I can tell each thing that I want it to do. So then I'm going to come over to the right side, and this is where my library is. So if I click on my blocks, I haven't actually made any blocks yet by myself, but I have made a couple of quilts. And these are where the quilts that I have created are going to live. So if you edit blocks, they will live here in my blocks. If you edit or create quilts, they will live here in your quilts. And then the rest of these categories are all different types of blocks. So I have classic, and under the classic, I have a lot of different types of blocks. Now, all of these are editable. So if you're not seeing your favorite classic, it's fine. You can edit them. If I go to flowers, then they look more like flower baskets to me, but what do I know? And again, I can edit in any way that I want. Flying geese, miscellaneous. I mean, literally there are over 300 built in. So I started with on point. So this is the on point block that I started with. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this over here and put it into place. And then maybe I want to try something else and mix something else in there. So let's say I like that one because that's a kind of an on point block as well. And then let's see if I go down to pinwheels, maybe I can find a pinwheel that I like. And I'll put that there. And then I can just keep going. The whole thing can be different. The whole thing can be the same. I'm going to get rid of this one. So I'm going to click on it and then just hit the delete key. And this one as well, because I have a plan here. All right, so I'm going to just start with these 2 blocks. And the first thing I'm going to do is change my colors because I'm going to multiply these blocks into the quilt. And I'm going to start with some of the colors that I think I would like to have in this. Or the other thing that this program allows you to do is import a collection of fabric. So if it's a new collection, let's say Moda just came out with a new collection, like we just got the Promenade. I can go to Moda, I can type in Promenade, I can download all of those images from Moda and I can upload them to the program. So I can not only see what my quilt looks like, but I can see what it looks like in the fabric that I want to sew it in. So that to me was really kind of I thought a really nice point to it. So we get up here and let's say that I don't want this to be blue. I want that to be pink. So I'm going to do piece select. So right next to all of these changes that I made is block select and piece select. I'm going to select that piece. So I'm going to select this piece right here. And I can just simply click another color, or I can right click and say, select all of the same in the quilt. By color and shape, by color or by shape. Well, I'm going to go by shape. And that way I'm going to get all of those and I'm going to make them aqua. Or maybe I'll make them a different green or something. Let's see. I have all of my colors down at the bottom. Or I can just click here and I can just get this little box here that lets me pick whatever color I want from the box. I'll pick that one. And then I'm going to do my center block. I'm going to select that piece select, center, and I'm just going to do this one white. And I'm going to do it white because that could be anything. That could be a panel print. That could be a big print. That could be an embroidery block that you add. So if you test out embroidery blocks once in a while and you figure out, don't know what you want to do with them, any of this can create a quilt that goes with that block that you just created on your embroidery machine. All right, so I need to have some pink in here. So now I'm going to go over to the other block. First of all, I'm going to do the piece select in the middle. And I'm going to make that be white as well. Because again, remember, this is going to be I'm going to add embroidery to this. And then I'm going to do piece select. And I'm going to do same by color. No, not by color, by shade. And I'm going to make that pink. I can't do it by color because then it would change my white blocks white. Oop, looks like I got them all because they're all the same shape. No worries. I'm going to go backwards. And I have to grab those little ones independently because I already changed it to white. I changed my center block already. So I'll make those pink. And then now I can grab the other ones and let's do same by color. And let's make that a light pink. All right. So let's say I've got all of my, my 2 blocks that I want to work with here. So I'm going to make this a little bit smaller workspace. I have plus and minus up here, so I can make it smaller so I can actually see the whole thing on my design page. All right, so I'm going to do a block select. I'm going to select it, and I can insert this block to a row, to a column, to column before, column after, or I can just do copy, paste, paste, paste. I'm just left clicking and right clicking, paste, paste. All right, then I'm going to do the same with the other one. I'm going to copy, just a basic fun thing here. All right. And let me give my borders and my sashing some color. So I'm going to do piece select. Maybe block select. Yes. Select all borders. Select all in this border or select same borders. I'm going to do select same borders and we're going to make that. Let's make it kind of an orangey color so we can see it. Select all in this border. Here we go. And then I'm going to go up to the other one, select all in this border, and I'll make it a darker pink. Whoops. Select same, and I'll make it blue. All right. So let's say that I think that this is fabulous, but let's see what the quilt variation player will do with this. So if I click on the quilt variation player, it'll give me several different choices. Now, the more blocks you have, the more difference that you'll get. So you'll see that down here on this side are all of the blocks that I have in this quilt. I have rows and columns. So rows and columns is selected. I can click the player and it'll just keep running different changes based on what it can do with rows and columns. When I see something I like, I can just click the stop button. I can do inwards. I can do alternations. I can do random. If I do random, it just kind of literally is random. And if I decide it was fine before, I can just do cancel. So that is, that's the basic premise. Now, what if I wanted to edit a block? So I'm gonna get rid of this one. I'm gonna bring a quilt in that I did this morning. So I'm gonna do open because I'm gonna open a file that I was already working on. And it should be a folder on my desktop. And here's one that I did this morning. All right. So this one was kind of fun because of my corner blocks. And the corner blocks were a fun thing to do. But what I did is I had to edit this block to match the corner block. So let's see how that kind of happens. So I'm just going to open, I'm going to do new quilt. I'm going to go, I think what I did is I went and I got strips. So here's my corner. And let's see, copy, paste. But I want my corner to rotate, don't I? So I can right click and rotate left. Right click, rotate left. I guess I probably should have gone right. There we go. All right, so now it would be kind of fun to just have some lines here that match up. So let's see what I've got here. Doesn't look like I have anything that matches up. So I'm going to edit this block. So I'm going to do a new block. So when I open the block, I get different properties here. And then I'm going to bring that same corner in and I'm going to edit it. So I'm going to bring that block in, right click and edit. So what I need now is the stripes, right? So I'm going to click on this piece here and I'm going to click on break up. And so it breaks it up into its sections. And I'm going to do that with all of the pieces. I'm going to break them up. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to lasso some of these because I don't want it to be points like this. I want straight lines that go with the corner I just created. So I'm going to grab my lasso. I don't even have to be precise. I'm just going to kind of grab the one I got. And then I'm going to, whoops, I got to get all of it. Well, don't be so silly. So let me hold my control key in and I'll just do piece select. Grab it all. Why are you not grabbing it all? So I'll unite, oops. I have no idea. Maybe I need to make it a little bit bigger. So lasso, I'll start over on this side where I have lots of different colors to pick from and see if I can make it cooperate on this side. So I'm just coming all the way over. Let's see. I had triangles, so maybe this will work better this way. So my back grid was a triangle and I was trying to make squares out of triangles. Worked perfectly this morning, but of course, you know, that wasn't live, so it always makes a difference, right? Right, let's see if I can just do this. Yes, and unite. Now I can make that one color. Squares and triangles, ladies, squares and triangles. Squares actually was what I needed. Triangles was what I had. All right, so now I'm going to go in and get the second row. I think, maybe not. And unite. And I'll make that color. So I'm basically just lassoing pieces. And so I took what was split down the middle and made it stripes so that these stripes will match up with the other, and then I'll change the colors later. And conversely, if I had a block that was, you know, one solid, like the square that's on point, I can do the same thing backwards. I can ungroup it. I can, you know, I can break it up. And all right, so now I'm going to save this to my block library. So I'm going to do, click on the application. It says save to library. And I am going to name it, let's see, this was strips 007. Edit. And I'm going to save it. So there it's where, so I'm going to go to my blocks now. I have a saved block. So I'm going to go back to the quilt that I had, that I was working on. All right, make it. Okay. So from the square that I had here, now I have something that I can put in the other block that now matches up perfectly and is continuous with that. So I can, you know, I can use jelly rolls, I can mix it up, but I knew that I just didn't want more than the corners that I had. And then I can copy and paste and rotate. Let's go rotate right this time, and then copy. So this way I'm creating a border around it. And then I can change that to the colors that are there. So let's say I want to have all of the color on the outside be pink. So I can do select. Let's do, I have to do piece select. What I did find is that if I actually started changing the colors of the quilt before I got all the way through the design part of the quilt, that it was easier to multiply blocks that were already the color that I wanted them to be, as opposed to starting and not having any of them be the right color and having to do all of them. Or just click here, pick the color you want. So now I've got that, you know, I can just multiply the blocks as they are. So one of the things that I had thought about with this it's there, it's saved. With this quilt was that this would make a great base for some embroidery design. So I used the same two of the blocks that I've already used. So this is the corner and this is the one I just made right here. This is the on point block. And this was this one of the on point ones too? No, this was one of the strips. This is this block right here rotated. So let's see what this one looks like when I put all of this into the quilt variation player. So, oh, look at that. I mean, that's pretty cool just by itself. Look at alternation. How much different can it look just by clicking a button? Inward, random. So this one really kind of looks like more of a modern quilt, I think. And then random has an arrow I can push. So that means that I can use the player to mix it up. And then you can save any one that you want and it'll save it into your My Quilts. Doesn't mean you have to sew it. Doesn't mean you can't shuffle it again. I'm going to do that and say, okay. So now that quilt is that quilt. And then let me save it save to the library. And this is going to be that one too. All right. So one of the things that I thought would be cool would be to bring in a block that I had sewn on my, or a design that I had sewn on my embroidery machine. So I'm going to go ahead and import a JPEG of that design. So to add a color or to add a fabric, you come across your little pop-up palette and you click on fabric. So it has quite a few built-in fabrics, but you'll notice at the top here, this is part of the Promenade collection. Anna, you should recognize this. This was some fabric that Anna brought in, which is what I used for my quilt sample this weekend. And, you know, the rest of these are built in. But what I'm going to do is what's in here is a JPEG. So essentially I could see what my embroidery design would look like if I just brought in a picture of my embroidery design. So I'm going to add that picture. I saved everything in the same folder, hopefully. No pictures in there, probably the designs in there. Let's try this one. Ah, here it is. So this right here is an image of that I just took a picture of on my in my software, but I could have done it on my embroidery machine as well with the OESD. I think it's a Happy Heels or something collection of shoes, and it has flowers and stuff in it. So I'm just going to go ahead and enter that in and add it to here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the block and I'm going to do piece select. And now from that fabric menu, I'm going to go look for my shoe, and it probably won't be the right size, and that's okay. There it is. So now I can just adjust the size until I get let me get it big, and then I'll change the offset. So the shoe is whatever size I sew it. And part of the export here tells me exactly how big this center square is that I created the center square for. Come on, you can go just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. You can do it. I know you can do it. All right, so that kind of gives me an idea. If it was a little bit bigger, maybe it would fit better. So that kind of gives me an idea of what that would look like if I actually used that, that shoe. And with the shoe and the flowers, I used the floral quilting background on it. And you could do it later in Design Center too. So now I'm gonna go ahead and see what, I'm gonna select, let's see if I can do select, same in block by color and shape. And I'm going to add the fabric that I might want to. So let's say that I'm going to do this and I'm going to use this fabric. And then I don't know if you can see that, how well you can see that on your screen, but you can actually see the print of the fabric there. So if I wanted to see what the quilt itself was going to look like, I could actually put in my embroidery designs. I could put in my fabric. Let's say I want, I also have the other colors. So I'm going to do select same in block by color. And then I'm going to get my little pop-up again, and I'm going to go to one of my other colors and say add. And that adds that color there. And the same here, I could go same in block. So let's do by color, grab my chart, add another color. So I literally could design the entire quilt in the collection of fabric that I wanted to actually do this quilt in. So my next step is, okay, I love it. I'm done with it. I don't need to do anything more to it. Now I just want to see what my fabric is and what my cut files look like. Well, there are several things that can happen. First of all, you want to do save as, and save as, you'll see saves as a BRF, meaning a working file. So I've already made my folder that says this is my pink quilt for my OESD designs. And this is another rendition of it. This is a second, this was random when I use the visualizer. So I'm going to put 2 there. So it'll save both of them. You can see even small, I can see my print and stuff there. All right, then I want to click on export. And the export is going to export an image of my quilt. So it's going to just save the image. So you can see here's the previous one. And I'm going to say this is going to be number 2. So I have an image. I have a bitmap of what it looks like. All right. Now I want to select print even if I don't want to print, because that's going to actually force a PDF. I'm going to force a PDF. So if I select print, what I want to do from my drop-down menu here, where you see the printer is selected from the drop-down menu, I want to do Microsoft Print to PDF. So with PDF, it's actually going to save out a PDF for me. So I'm going to say, yes, that's what I want to do. And I'm going to select OK. And you can see that it's going to populate out that, and I'm going to save it as a PDF document right in the same folder. My quilt, pink, whatever, quilt, pink quilt, into the folder. And you'll see that it has a total of 43 pages. So let's see what's on those 43 pages. But first of all, we want to export it, because if we wanted to cut it, we'd have to export it. So we've saved it. If you want to save it to your library, you can save to the library. We've exported the image. We've selected to do a PDF rather than print the whole document out, because we may not want to print the whole document out. If we save a PDF, we can print whatever we want. So now from the tools, let's see one more thing though here. I actually have a color theme designer. So I can click on color theme designer, and then I can select different colors. So what if I want minty julep? And then I can select colors. And I can say, okay, and it changes the whole quilt to those colors. Oh, wow, right, Anna, isn't that pretty cool? Or, so I don't have a lot of colors in here, but I can do blues. If I have, the more colors I have, the more choices that I have. So I can just do random. Also, I can click on random. And it'll give me, see, it's not changing the ones I've actually placed fabric in, is it? It's holding those because I did that specifically. Ooh, that was kind of cool, the peacock blue. So it'll go through my entire color chart. And, you know, it may give me, you know, a couple of different things that I may not have thought about. All right, so let's export the project. So when you export the project is when you get this export box, all right? First of all, don't forget to add your seam allowances. Please don't forget to add your seam allowance. Once you open the program a couple of times, your seam allowance preference will usually save, unless your computer's done some sort of crazy reset, or maybe if it does an update or something that would cause a lot of, you know, some of your programs to not have, you know, the things that you saved save. So be sure that you add your seam allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and add my 0.25, which is my 1/4 inch. All right. And then where it says spacing, please make sure this is at least 0.20. So this is to override the spacing in between objects. So what happens if you leave that, because you say, oh, I don't want any space because I don't want any space between my triangles when I cut it on the ScanNCut, you're still going to end up with threads. You're going to end up with threads that aren't exact. So if you do 0.20, when you go to peel the Band-Aid off, after it's cut out all of your stuff on the ScanNCut, you'll have just basically not even 1/4 inch of fabric in between. You'll get some really super clean cuts. And then you do want to save this to your library. And you do want to save the quilt and the block in the file, just in case you didn't do it so far. And you do want to populate your cut files. You can choose here what size mat you want to use. So if you want to use a 12 by 12 or 12 by 24, it doesn't matter. Here's what I do is I usually save with a 12 by 12 because I cut on a fabric mat. And there is no 12 by 24 fabric mat, to my demise. I want one so bad. So if I have what would be 2 12 by 12s for a 24-inch mat, if I had a 24-inch mat, I could just combine them on the mat on the ScanNCut. I wouldn't have to do it here. And then that way it's broken up if I don't have that mat. And then where it says DPI, if all you ever want to do is take a picture of it and save a picture, leave that DPI at 300. However, any of these blocks, you can take that image file into Design Center or IQ Designer, and you can make an embroidered quilt block. You can make, if it's a crazy block, you can make you can make stitches that go on it, but you cannot import an image that's 300 DPI into Design Center or IQ Designer. So you'd want to drop this down to 100 for IQ Designer. And then you can print to scan if you want, or not. And so then you can, you can just preview. And then I'm going to go ahead and export this because this is where all my cut files and everything are. So you can see that now this is my export. Can you see that pop-up box or no? Can you see where my mouse is right? Yeah. Okay. Let me make them big. So now you can see these are all my blocks. These are all the blocks I created, every one of them. And then these are all my cut files, and they are grouped by colors. Like this is the highlight peach page, and it has the highlight peach in every place that it occurs in every shape in the quilt. And so these are all those pieces. So when I look at saying, okay, I want to do an embroidery design in that square. So, but obviously I don't want to cut the square first, because if I cut the square first, then I'm not going to be able to embroider it on my embroidery machine. So what I would do is say, okay, I want to know what my embroiderable area is. And so when I get down to the rest of my when I get to my PDF, it's going to tell me exactly what size this inside square is. So let's go take a look at that. So I'm gonna, let's see, I don't know if I can do this. I may have to stop share and reshare. Let me find the PDF. All right. Can you see the PDF? Somebody give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Nope. Okay. I'll reshare. All right. So now you should be able to see it, right? All right. So this is the PDF that comes out when we export it. So the first page shows the entire quilt. The second page has my information, like the quilt, the total finished size was 50.5 by 50.5. It has 154 pieces. Each block size is 8.5 by 8.5. I have a total of 25 blocks, 146 pieces, and the number of pieces per block varies between 5 and 10. On my sashing, it's not giving me, that didn't cut, it's not going to cut my sashing pieces, obviously, because the mat is not big enough. From my border, I have a 4-inch border, a horizontal width of 4 inches, and 8 pieces. As I come back down, look at, there's my templates. So it's telling me I need 22 pieces that are 5.10 by 5.10. You might find if you cut those 2 pieces out and tape them together that they're probably a 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. I'm not sure, but I know the scan and cut will cut them perfectly, so I'm not worried about it. However, if you do not have a scan and cut, then each one of these pieces can be cut along those white lines, and you can use that as a template. And here's an even bigger look at it. It says I need 22 pieces in mint julep and 11 pieces. These are my whites in the middle, my center blocks, and they are 6.51 by 6.51. So I know that if I wanted to do a block and I wanted to embroider it, remember this block is on point. So my embroidery design would need to be rotated 45 degrees. And then I would sew that embroidery design out. If I don't make a block, I mean, if I don't cut the square until, you know, after I've embroidered, it doesn't matter. I just need to know that it needs to fit in a 6.5 inch by 6.5 inch block. So normally I would say, don't make that embroidery design be any bigger than, I would say 6 by 6, because that way it allows you to have room. And so, and how are you going to figure out where to cut it? Well, you can print out your template, you can place it over the top of it, and you can, you know, draw and cut around it. Or if you have a scan and cut, you're just going to scan that piece of embroidery when it's finished and drop the cut file for this on top of it and cut it out exactly the size it needs to be, because you'll be able to see it on the screen of the scan and cut. So these are all my pieces. That's why there's all those pages. So what I would do is pick and choose like which pages you're going to paint. You're going to print like this one. There's 3 pieces of this 7.65 by 2.20. If I come down here, this one is also 7.65 by 2.20. It doesn't mean, it means I don't, if this, I'm going to use this as a template, I don't need to print both of them. I can just print one of them. So that's why I usually will go through it. Look at it, even printed my fabric. How cute. There's my embroidery design. There's more of my fabric. So it really is a pretty sweet little program for what it does. Get down to the bottom here. All right. So then as I get towards the bottom, it says I will have step 1, cut 3 strips of 5.10 and subcut 22 squares of 5.10 inches. So if you're going to do it to cut by hand, your cutting directions are here under what they call fabric analysis. And then on page 34, it begins to show you, you know, the assembly, the position of the block, you know, that kind of stuff. Color numbers. And then a layout for you. So a lot of info for just that one. And now the other thing you can do, I will not be doing a sample of this. I'm already going to tell you right now, ladies, because you know, y'all know I don't shred fabric and sew it back together. But you can do a picture quilt. So now keep in mind that you are not, if you want to do a picture of a human, you're going to be setting your piece size to 1 inch or smaller. But if you want to just do a picture quilt, if you want to do a picture quilt of like a flower or something like that, I've just been playing with it with clip art like these guys here. This one actually came out pretty well. So I'm gonna get my picture here. And your sliders here actually the size of your blocks and the size of your squares. So I just left everything at the default and then clicked on next. And now is where I get to say piece size without the seam allowance. So right now it's set at like 2. I'm going to take it all the way down to 1. Can I go any further? Yeah, 1 is the smallest I can go. And so you can see that my corners are not going to be really round, because if I have round edges like a flower, block size. Nope, I don't want to use. Okay, then, you know, it's close. It's not great. Let me try the other, because I did it. I think the other daisy was better because it was less lifelike and more cartoon-like. So that one came out a little bit more looking like a flower, but I guess you have to look at how big you made it. If you made it bigger, if I made the quilt itself bigger, maybe it'll break, you know, break the, so let's see. Okay, so I made it, yeah, so the bigger I'm going here, can you see how the little squares are getting? So what if I made it 100, what's 108 inches, I think is king size, right? Let's make my pieces 1 inch. So those of you that are just really obsessed with shredding fabric will be happy to know that you'll be cutting 166,000 pieces. And then let's see what we get. See, we get a flower that looks much more like a flower. And so it does, the same thing happens if I do finish. So I have number of colors is 38. If I finish it, I get a finished quilt that I can also export. It doesn't actually look too bad if you want to cut 166,000 pieces. And then the same things would happen. I would just export as normal. All right. So look at that. I got through my whole program, ladies. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm open for questions now. I'm going to just go ahead and stop the share and you'll get me back.
I have a question about pulling up fabric, putting pictures in there. So if I want Tim Holtz Abandon, so do I have to go someplace that shows each
Yes.
each one and pull each picture in separate?
Yes, you can't, you cannot import, you can't import a collection, sadly. But yes, you can, what I would do is if it's an older collection and it's not like Tim Holtz Abandoned and Tim Holtz Eclectic Elements is still pretty popular. So you can find it in a lot of different places. But what I would do is I would go to Free Spirit Fabric and see if they still have it. Because that way you get the best image if you can pull the images down that they have on the website, which leads me to, that's a great question, actually. Let me share another screen with you because I did have a collection of fabric that I did grab just the whole collection from the website. And that was, let's see. Well, not the whole collection, but most of it. Let's see. Let me share screen. All right, so I went to Riley, I think this, I'm not sure this, I don't remember if this is Moda or Riley Blake. I think it's, I don't remember. It's one of the two. And this is the entire She Who Sews collection, or maybe it's not the entire collection, but it's what I had or could find. And you'll see that it says Media One, Media One. That means I downloaded these pictures right off of Moda's website or wherever I got them. On fabric that I didn't have, like the fabric that I used for my little runner for the show, That was fabric that one of the customers brought in. And although I looked for it, it wasn't current in anybody's line and nobody had it. So what I did was just took a picture of it with my phone. Just remember that you're not taking a portrait. So you don't need a picture of fabric at 600 DPI. If you have some people have scanning apps on their phone. That usually works pretty well because usually a scanner only scans at like about 100 DPI. So, but yes, if you want the whole collection, you do have to bring them all in individually. And then when you're done or you're not sewing with that fabric anymore, you can just delete those colors or those fabrics out of there. But that's a great question. Yes.
Question.
Yes.
In the beginning, you said something about it. You used your scan and cut to draw the sewing line?
Yes. So
Which-
on the scan and cut, you can actually do a cut line and a draw line. So for some of you that did the crab apple with me with the scan and cut about 2 or 3 weeks ago, you know that in Canvas we made the square for the crab apple pillow, which needed 32 red squares. And these 32 red squares actually, when we cut them, no, it wasn't those, it was the other ones. It was the white ones or something. No, it was the red ones. The red one had a sewing line where you could stitch down the middle. So what we did is we created a draw line and a cut line so that we could put a fabric marker in to begin with, like a wash away or a heat away marker, and that would draw the stitching line for us. And then we switched to our blade and a cutting line and it cut the squares out for us. So yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
I'm signed up for the class on the 21st with the
Yes.
software. Should I load that first or are we going to load it together?
No, go ahead and load it.
Okay.
It's really easy. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say I would load it and do a video, but it's only got 2 loads on each copy only has 2 loads.
Mhm.
So, and I've already done it twice. I would prefer that you loaded it because if you have any problems, I can't help you with it, but brother can.
Okay.
So call them direct.
Yeah.
I
I didn't want to get ahead of myself if I should.
No. You can
Yeah.
go ahead and load your software. And
So we can load that on 2 different computers?
Yes, you can. You have 2 loads and 2 active, have 2 activations on it. So yes, you can put it on 2 different computers. Any other questions? What do you guys think? Doesn't that sound fun? I swear I have had the best time with it. And my friend Jen was up for the quilt show and she's my piecing buddy. I mean, that girl shreds fabric like there's no tomorrow. And so she's like, yeah, we might make a quilter out of you yet. And I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. I like software. I love my scan and cut. So, and if it was a small project, I did a small project at the quilt retreat. I didn't mind piecing because I had everybody there to chat with while I was doing it. Sitting at home and doing all of those 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'll have to get back to you on that one. Because, I don't know. I just don't know. But I did have a great time doing my banner and I was hoping I could find it. But if you have any idea what the store looks like the day, just think of Black Friday at Walmart. And that's what we look like in here right now with all the boxes from the quilt show. So I was really actually grateful I could find my power cord. So I export, print, save out, lasso, color theme, please select, block, edit, breakup, white. Yeah, I think, so what I'm gonna do is this I didn't do a Facebook group for this demo. But what I am gonna do is I'm going to download it and I am gonna upload it to YouTube. So it's not gonna be a private video or anything like that. I'm just gonna upload it to YouTube. And then I will send you all the link when I get it uploaded. So if you want to watch it again, but I am pretty enamored with this. I'm sure I haven't done everything that it can do. And then, I'm, pretty excited with it. So when I was breaking, gotta go. All right. Ciao. See you later. Bye, Anna. When I was actually breaking up those pieces to make that one quilt block, I thought, ooh, if you had if you made the triangle, so think of the block edit, which was where I, took the corner block and made it, sashing piece, stripping pieces. When you break things apart, you can choose what size that square is that you break them apart. So I could have chosen a triangle, an inverted triangle, a square. I could choose a lot of different size blocks, which really would let me create some pretty interesting things. So although I thought at first, well, I can't make a circle. Okay, well, you can't make a circle, but if you make these squares small enough, you can make what looks like a heart. You can make what looks like a circle. It's not completely round, but I'm okay with that because I did Drunkard's Pass quilts in the 70s, and I'm okay if I never sew another circle together again. So, I just found that it was really a way to open up creativity, and I'm sure I'm not done yet. So one of the things that we discovered at the quilt show is, did you know that there are people that still sell those, what is it, Aunt Martha's, the hand embroidery things that you ironed on, that blue ink for Aunt Martha's? All right. This girl doesn't do anything that has a 4-letter word like hand in it, because to me, that's a 4-letter word. I have way too much technology to do anything by hand. But guess what we can do? We can scan those little things in on the Luminaire, the Solaris, or we can scan them in on the Scan and Cut and take them into software. We can make our own that, we can make our own non-hand embroidery. And I just figured out that if you run 2 threads of embroidery thread through one single needle, you get a pretty chunky piece of thread when it sews out that running stitch. So it's not something you could do through an entire embroidery design, but if all you have is like a running stitch quilting design, run 2 threads through that needle, put a 90 embroidery needle in, run 2 threads through it, two 40 weight thread. You got a really pretty running stitch there that'll rival Aunt Martha's, and you didn't do it by hand. So lots of areas to go, I think, with this. So for those of you that are joining me later on is it this week or next week, I think. I will actually put some pre-class videos into that Facebook group. I just haven't done them yet. So if you didn't know, I was out for a week with COVID. I managed to avoid it for 2 years and came back from Portland with it because a lady came to our quilting retreat sick because she didn't want to miss the retreat and didn't say anything, and incubated 14 of us for 7 days. So out of the 14 of us, 10 of us got it, and 2 spouses. So that's where I was when I wasn't here, but I was still sewing because I thankfully had all of my shots, so I couldn't get bad cooties. I could only get kind of bad cooties. So I lost my voice, and that was it. So I feel very, very blessed and grateful because it could have been worse, and I'm glad to be back to work. So any other questions, ladies?
Thank you very much.
Are you going to give regular classes with this new software?
I probably will do, I think what I'm going to do with this, because there's just not enough to do like a software class with it. It's just really pretty straightforward once you start pushing the buttons. But I think what I might do is just record a couple of different segments and then let Patrick just sell it as a class. Will I do projects that include it? Yes. But as far as just doing the software, nuts to bolts, there really isn't that much more than what we did today. So I'm learning as I punch buttons, but I will record a couple of different projects as I do the projects and let Patrick decide how he wants to post that. And then I will I will be using it going forward. I'll be using it in projects because, hey, I don't have to shred the fabric. The Scan and Cut does it. That's like my salvation. Is like, I don't like to cut fabric like that. So, and the Scan and Cut cuts way straighter than I do. I had to cut all that stuff at quilt retreat. I didn't have a Scan and Cut. I said, Jen, how come you didn't bring a Scan and Cut? You drove. So, all right, ladies, if there's no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and end our session. Oh, is that a waving at me for a question?
Thanks, Michelle.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Bye, ladies.
Thank you. Bye-bye.